Hi everybody, this is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. Today we're talking about food safety, and I have some general tips for you for managing leftovers. Now this list is kind of long, so I broke it up into two parts. This is part one. I will have a link to part two video below, so make sure you watch them both so you can get the full list of tips for managing leftovers. The first tip is to apply the 2 by 2 by 4 rule. What in the world does that mean? 2 by 2 by 4. When you're talking about managing leftovers, this is a great thing to remember. The first 2 applies to hours. 2 hours. You want to make a point of putting leftover foods away within 2 hours from the time they are finished being cooked. Not 2 hours from the time you get up from the table, or 2 hours from the time you serve, unless you're serving immediately after they're finished being cooked. Now, if you are outside and you're grilling outside, you're going to eat outside, and it's a hot sunny day, you want to change that to 1 hour. You want that food to be put in the refrigerator within 1 hour from the time it's being cooked, or in an ice chest covered with ice or something like that, because you just don't want it to harbor some harmful bacteria that might be getting in there. So 2 hours is a general rule of thumb when you're eating indoors. 1 hour, put food away if you're eating outside on a hot sunny day. The second 2 applies to inches, okay? When you're putting leftover food away, if it's very hot, like especially a soup that just came off the stove and you haven't cooled it down in any way, you want to try your best to make it no more than 2 inches thick in your containers when you're putting it away. Why is that? When you've got something hot and you've got it in a deep container and you stick it in the refrigerator, it takes a lot longer than you realize for the core of that to really chill down to refrigerator temperature, making it food safe. It can take hours upon hours, way more than you realize. So if you limit the thickness, at least initially when you put it in there, to 2 inches, it'll chill down a lot faster. Then if you want, for the sake of room, later on, once it's chilled down, you can pile it all up there and make it as thick as your container will handle and your refrigerator will hold, and do it that way. It's fine. But just bear in mind, it takes a long time for the core of something to chill down when it's thick. And this applies to not only soup, stews, hunks of meat, all sorts of any leftover food that you've got that you're going to put in the refrigerator. The 4 applies to 4 days. You want to make a point of using your leftovers within 4 days, just as a general rule of thumb, and that will help to prevent foodborne illness from something that's gotten too old in the refrigerator. Now, this is not a hard and fast rule, because some things won't keep 4 days and some things will keep beyond 4 days. But if you're just not sure, then use 4 days as a rule of thumb to make a point of using those leftovers within 4 days, just to be on the safe side. The next tip for managing leftovers: be sure to discard any perishable food that was left out at room temperature for 2 hours or more. That goes in sync with my 2 by 2 by 4 rule. And if you have the food outside, and again it's a hot sunny day, change that to 1 hour, because really when food is at the room temperature or warmer than that outside on a hot sunny day, bacteria can get in there and flourish, and it happens pretty quickly, faster than you might realize. So you want to be safe, and if food's been sitting out for an extended period of time beyond those time frames, throw them away. Don't take chances. If you're eating out and you have some leftovers from the meal that you paid for, you just can't eat it all, you want to take some home with you, fine and dandy. However, this 2 by 2 by 4 rule still applies, especially the hours. Okay, we know that that food, or chances are that food was eaten indoors, so it hasn't been sitting outside in the sun, but you still want to get it in the refrigerator within 2 hours of the time it was finished being cooked. We can only assume that it was cooked shortly before being brought to us. Sometimes it may have been cooked a little earlier than that and held under warming lamps. You don't know. Well, you can only go with assumptions here. If you're traveling and you are not real close to home, or you've got other errands to run, and it's going to be longer than 2 hours before you can get that food into a refrigerator, it's really best not to take it home with you. As painful as that might be, as much as you might enjoy the food, it's really best to be on the safe side. Eating food that is tainted with bacteria from sitting out too long can be deadly. And anywhere from an upset stomach to death, and anything in between imaginable. So you don't want to take a chance on that, and just let it go. When you're reheating leftover food at home, it's been in the refrigerator, you want the next day, you want to enjoy some of it, make sure that you heat it to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit or 74 degrees Celsius. A food thermometer works great for that. If you're not sure, if it's a soup or something like that, you bring it to a boil, even if it's just, you know, a simmer, and you're good. You know that you're at least 212 or close to there. So you want it to be at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit, and that will ensure that any harmful bacteria that's in there should be killed. And another thing that goes in sync with my 2x2x4 rule is be sure that you use any leftover food in 3 to 4 days. Again, that's not hard and fast, but it's a good general rule of thumb to follow, because a lot of times beyond 4 days, food might be a little bit questionable. Not always, but it might be, and I would think twice about eating it if it gets beyond 4 days. If it starts looking funny, smelling odd, just developing an odd texture or a film or something over it, don't take chances, throw it away. Alright, stay tuned for part 2. That video is coming up. Let me know if you have any tips and tricks to share regarding leftovers. That would be appreciated. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.